The Legend of Zelda is one of the most beloved franchises in gaming history, but underneath the bright colors and heroic adventures, there's a foundation of genuine suffering that most players never stop to think about. Every curse, every doomed kingdom, all of it traces back to one moment. So today, we're breaking down the darkest backstories in the entire Zelda timeline, starting with the one that caused all of it, Demise's curse. In the final moments of Skyward Sword, the Demon King Demise loses his battle against Link, and instead of dying quietly, he delivers what might be the most consequential sentence in the entire franchise. He curses Link, Zelda, and every single one of their descendants to be hunted by incarnations of his hatred for all of eternity. Not a threat, a promise, an unbreakable cosmic law. This happens roughly 10,000 years before Ocarina of Time. Every hero that picks up the Master Sword, every princess that prays to the goddess, every Ganondorf that rises to power was predetermined by a dying demon's last words. Every timeline, every era, cosmically scripted before it began. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. The curse manifests through Ganon across at least 8 canonical games. No timeline escapes it, no hero prevents it. Link can win every fight, seal every evil, save every kingdom, and it literally does not matter. The next incarnation of hatred is already coming. That means every act of heroism in the Zelda franchise is predetermined tragedy disguised as free will. Heroism isn't a triumph, it's a cage. But if the curse itself sounds bleak, wait until you see what the gods did to stop it, because their solution was arguably worse than the problem. The Great Sea Extinction Wind Waker is one of the most beloved Zelda games ever made. Bright colors, cel-shaded art, a cheerful kid sailing across a massive ocean on a talking boat. It's adorable. It's also set on top of a mass grave. Here's what actually happened. After the events of Ocarina of Time, Ganon returned, and the people of Hyrule, desperate and out of options, prayed to the gods for salvation. The gods answered. They flooded the entire kingdom. Every city, every village, every underground tunnel and basement where families were hiding. All of it, buried under an ocean so deep that nobody would ever find it again. This wasn't a natural disaster. This was a deliberate, calculated decision by the gods to drown an entire civilization to stop one man. The people prayed for the help, and the help they got was total annihilation. Millions of people gone. An entire culture's history, architecture, and knowledge erased. The Zora were so devastated by the catastrophe that they literally evolved into an entirely new species, the Rito, just to survive. That's not adaptation, that's biological trauma on a generational scale. And the worst part? It worked. Ganon was sealed. Hyrule was destroyed, and hundreds of years later, a bunch of kids are sailing around on the surface, having a great time, completely unaware that every wave they're riding over is someone's flooded living room. The gods didn't fail to protect their people, they chose to sacrifice them. Every cheerful island in Wind Waker is just the tip of a mountain that used to be part of a kingdom. The ocean isn't an adventure, it's a cover-up. But if institutional divine horror isn't dark enough for you, wait until you hear what they did to an entire race of people and banished them to a dimension of eternal shadow, the Shadow Folk. The Twilight didn't invade anyone. They didn't burn down a village or assassinate a king. They practiced dark magic. That's it. And for that, the gods of Hyrule decided the appropriate response was to banish their entire race to a parallel dimension for eternity, which is, not ideal. But exile wasn't even the worst part. Once trapped in the Twilight Realm, cut off from the light of the world they'd known, the Twilight began to change, slowly, gradually. Their original humanoid forms regressed over generations into shadow beings, creatures that can no longer exist in normal light. Think about that for a second. They didn't just lose their homeland, they lost their bodies, their faces. Every physical trait that made them who they were eroded away over centuries and was replaced with something unrecognizable. An entire species had its identity dissolved. Not in a single act of cruelty, but through the slow rot of existing in a dimension that was never meant to sustain them. That's not justice, that's body horror on a civilizational timescale. And here's where it gets worse. You'd think that after being exiled to a shadow prison and having your entire species gradually disfigured by the realm itself, the universe might leave you alone for a bit, let you grieve in peace. But no. Within their own prison dimension, a tyrant named Zant rose from their ranks and subjugated the entire population. Enslaved people, ruled by a despot, inside their cage, layer upon layer of suffering with zero relief. The original crime was practicing forbidden magic. The punishment was eternal exile, a slow species-wide degeneration, the complete erosion of their former existence, and then enslavement by one of their own. If that's proportional justice, I don't know what to tell you. But if you think divine overreaction is dark, wait until you hear about an entire kingdom that didn't just get punished. It got cursed into an endless loop of death. Ikana Kingdom. Most cursed locations in video games give you one bad day. Ikana Kingdom gives you every bad day, forever, on repeat. Before Majora's Mask even begins, the Ikana Kingdom is already finished. The curse, almost certainly tied to Majora's Mask itself, drained every drop of water from the land. No rivers, no rain, Nothing, just sun-bleached rock and dust, where a thriving civilization used to be. But the people didn't get the mercy of dying. Here's where it gets genuinely horrible. The inhabitants were transformed into undead. Gibdos, Poes, Redeads, ghouls shambling through empty streets with just enough awareness to remember they used to be people. They didn't lose consciousness, they lost everything else. Their bodies rotted, their autonomy vanished, and they were left standing in the ruins of their own kingdom, fully aware of what they'd become. Every single named character in the Ikana region is either dead or transformed, not most of them. Everyone. It's a kingdom populated entirely by ghosts and monsters who used to have names and families and jobs. And then there's the loop. The 3-day cycle that makes Majora's Mask such a brilliant game mechanic is, for the people of Ikana, an engine of infinite suffering. Every 72 hours, the clock resets. The same 3 days of misery begin again. No progression, no healing, no escape. You, the player, reset that clock for convenience. You do it because you need more time to finish a side quest or buy a mask. Meanwhile, every soul in Ikana screams through another cycle because you needed 5 more minutes at the shooting gallery. That's not a kingdom, that's a prison sentence with no warden and no parole, just an hourglass that flips itself. But if a cursed kingdom sounds bad, wait until you hear what happened to a single queen whose death echoes across thousands of years. Queen Sonia's fate. Most characters in Zelda die, and that's the end of it. Sonia didn't get that luxury. She got something so much worse that it barely qualifies as death at all. Queen Sonia was one of the founding figures of Hyrule. She stood alongside King Rauru and helped establish the kingdom that serves as the backdrop for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. She's a distant ancestor of Princess Zelda, one of the earliest roots of that bloodline, and the Demon King Ganondorf murdered her thousands of years before the events of Tears of the Kingdom. Horrible, sure, but straightforward. Except it wasn't straightforward at all, because Ganondorf didn't just kill her. He stole her secret stone, the source of her time powers, and used it to fuel his own transformation. Sonia died, and her killer walked away stronger because of it. Permanently stronger. Here's where it gets dark. This isn't a villain defeating a hero and moving on. Ganondorf took the most sacred thing she possessed, the stone she used to channel her power, and swallowed it to become the Demon King. Every ounce of destruction he unleashed across the ages was partially powered by what he ripped from her. Her own artifact became fuel for the thing that murdered her. But the real tragedy is what happened next. Sonia's descendants, the princesses and heroes of Hyrule, spent generation after generation fighting Ganondorf, attacking him, stabbing, sealing. Every time Link drives a sword into the Demon King's body, he's fighting a monster that was built on their ancestors' stolen power. They never knew where that power came from. They couldn't have known. That's not just a death. That's having your legacy weaponized against your own bloodline for millennia by the worst thing that ever happened to you, while your own descendants throw themselves at the monster you accidentally made stronger, which is, you know, not ideal. But if Sonia's fate is a theft nobody knew about, the next entry is a ghost that nobody wanted to become. The hero's shade. This one doesn't hit you with horror. It hits you with something worse, silent. The hero's shade is the ghost of the hero of time. That's the adult Link from Ocarina of Time, the one who pulled the Master Sword, fought through every temple, defeated Ganon, and literally saved all of Hyrule. And his reward for doing all of that was getting erased. Here's what happened. After Link saved the world, Zelda sent him back in time to relive his childhood. Sounds nice, right? Except it wasn't. Because the years he spent as an adult, fighting, growing, becoming a warrior, those years were taken from him. They didn't count. He returned to a world where nobody knew what he'd done, where the war he fought never happened, where the person he'd become didn't exist. He was a child again, carrying the memories of a man, trapped in a life that wasn't his anymore. And he couldn't adjust. He couldn't go back to being a kid. He couldn't move forward as an adult. He just existed in between, belonging to neither version of his life. Eventually, he simply faded away. No grand death, no final battle, just a slow, quiet disappearance into nothing. Then he shows up in Twilight Princess as a spectral knight, teaching Wolf Link hidden combat technique, shadow technique, dark knowledge earned through decades of suffering in limbo. His entire purpose in death is to train someone else to do exactly what destroyed him. That's the joke the universe plays on the hero of time. You save the world, you lose yourself. You die without rest, and your only remaining function is preparing your successor to walk the same path. He did everything right, every single thing, and the reward was becoming a ghost whose sole job is making sure the cycle continues without him. But if the hero's shade is what happens to a legend, wait until you see what happens to an ordinary father in Ikana Kingdom. Pamela's father. Everything we've talked about so far has been big. Kingdoms falling, timelines fracturing, entire civilizations swallowed by the ocean. But Majora's Mask does something far worse than any of that. It zooms in. Pamela is a little girl living in Ikana Canyon. Her father was a researcher studying the curse that had consumed the kingdom, and at some point during his work, the curse consumed him too. He was transformed into a Gibdo, one of those shambling, bandage-wrapped undead creatures that wander Ikana's ruins. His mind is gone, his memories are gone. Every trace of the man he used to be has been completely erased, but his body is still there. So Pamela does what no child should ever have to do. She locks her father in in a room inside their house, essentially a cage, and she takes care of him, day after day. She feeds him, she watches him. She keeps him contained so he doesn't wander off into the wasteland and get destroyed by something worse. She is a child performing full-time caregiving for a parent who doesn't know she exists. And here's the thing that makes this genuinely hard to sit with. There's no cure. There's no side quest that fixes him. There's no fairy fountain, no magical song, no ancient artifact that restores his mind. You can play the Song of Healing near him, and it temporarily soothes his condition, but the 3-day cycle resets everything. The next loop, he's a Gibdo again. Pamela is back to square one again. The parallel to caring for a parent with dementia is so obvious, the game doesn't even need to say it. A person you love is technically alive but fundamentally gone. The grief never resolves because there's no death to grieve, just an endless, exhausting present tense. Nintendo put that in a game rated E for everyone, which is, not ideal. But if Pamela's father represents one half of a family torn apart by Akana's curse, the next entry shows what happens when the bond between brothers gets the same treatment, flat and sharp. Most of Akana's tragedies involve kingdoms and armies and ancient wars. This one involves two brothers who just wanted to play music together. Flat and Sharp were twin composers in life. Their names are literally musical terms, half steps on a scale, two notes that only make sense in relation to each other. That's not subtle. These two were defined by their partnership. Their entire identity was built around harmony, around being a pair, around creating something together that neither could create alone. Then the curse hit Akana, and it took everything from them. After death, both brothers were transformed into Pose, angry spectral forms haunting separate locations across the kingdom, not together, separately. Twins who spent their entire lives side by side were split apart and stuffed into isolated corners of a dead land, each one alone with nothing but rage. And here's what makes this one quietly devastating. They attack Link on sight. There's no conversation first, no plea for help, no moment of recognition, just violence. These were artists, musicians, people who expressed themselves through melody and collaboration. The curse didn't just kill them, it replaced everything they were with aggression. Their music became hostility. Their harmony became isolation. Think about what the curse specifically targeted here. It didn't turn them into the same kind of undead and leave them together. It didn't let them keep even a fragment of their shared identity. It separated them, stripped away their art, and filled the empty space with fury. That's not random destruction, that's surgical. The curse found the one thing that made Flat and Sharp who they were, the bond between them, and it severed it completely. Two brothers, two halves of the same song. Now just two angry ghosts who don't even know the other one exists anymore. But if the quiet destruction of two musicians feels small compared to kingdoms falling, wait until you hear about an entire civilization that simply chose to leave the world behind. The Wind Tribe's departure. Not every dark backstory in Zelda involves blood, curses, or ancient demons. Some of the worst ones involve something quieter, something that doesn't leave a scar you can point to. The Wind Tribe were an entire civilization connected to wind magic in the Minish Cap. They lived among the people of Hyrule, built the Tower of Winds, and wielded power that most people couldn't even comprehend. And then at some point, they just left, ascended into the sky to live among the clouds. Gone. No war, no catastrophe. No farewell. Here's where it gets complicated. The game never gives you a full explanation for why they withdrew from the surface world. That's not an oversight or a mystery the developers plan to solve later. That's just the reality the people of Hyrule had to live with. An entire tribe that once walked among them simply decided the ground wasn't worth standing on anymore. Not a letter, not a prophecy, not even a vague warning scratched into a wall somewhere. The leading theories range from them seeking to guard the wind element from above, to ascending because they no longer felt connected to surface life, pulling away from a world they saw as increasingly dangerous. But honestly, the reason almost doesn't matter. What matters is the silence they left behind. An entire population eventually realized the people who once lived alongside them had retreated to the sky, permanently, with zero indication of whether they'd ever come back, and they never did. Their departure didn't just leave an emotional wound, it left a cultural one. The knowledge they carried, the magic they practiced, the connection between sky and surface, all of it went with them. The people left behind didn't just lose neighbors. They lost an entire branch of their world's history, and most of them probably didn't even notice until the memory had already faded. That's a different kind of darkness. Not the kind that kills you, the kind that simply forgets you exist. But if abandonment without closure sounds bad, wait until you hear about someone who can't even escape through death, the reincarnation of Ganondorf. Here's something that should fundamentally change the way you think about every Zelda game you've ever played. Ganondorf isn't the villain. He never was. Every time you fought him, every time you drove a Master Sword through his chest, every time you watched him crumble into darkness and felt that rush of victory, you were killing a prisoner, not a conqueror. A man born into a role he never auditioned for. Reading lines written by a dying demon thousands of years before he took his first breath. Demise's curse doesn't just guarantee that evil will return. It guarantees that a specific person will be born, carrying a compulsion they cannot resist, to pursue destruction they may not even want. Across the entire timeline, there are really only a handful of distinct Ganondorfs. The Gerudo King from Ocarina of Time persists through most of the series, resurrected and sealed over and over, while Four Swords Adventures gives us a separate reincarnation. These aren't dozens of people choosing evil. It's the same man, or his direct reincarnation, trapped in an endless loop. And here's where it gets genuinely tragic. In Wind Waker, Ganondorf seems to know. He talks about the wind that blew across the desert where he was born, hot and suffocating, carrying nothing but death. He talks about coveting the green fields of Hyrule, the gentle breeze that carried life instead of sand. For one brief moment, the series' greatest monster sounds like a man who just wanted something better and was cursed to pursue it in the worst possible way. He couldn't stop, none of them can. That's the point. Free will, the ability to simply choose not to be evil, all of it stripped away before birth by a creature none of these incarnations ever met. Ganondorf doesn't conquer Hyrule because he wants to. He conquers it because Demise decided he would. The franchise's greatest villain is simultaneously its greatest victim, which is, not ideal. But if Ganondorf is trapped by a curse he can't escape, at least he has company. Because the next story is about a princess who lost everything, including her own body. Midna's exile. Most characters on this list lost their lives. Midna lost everything except her life, which honestly might be worse. Before Twilight Princess even begins, Midna was royalty, a princess of the Twilight Realm, heir to its throne, respected by her people. Then Zant, a power-hungry usurper from within her own court, staged a coup. He didn't just take her crown, he took her body, her form, her dignity. Zant used dark magic to twist her into a small, imp-like creature, a mockery of what she used to be. One moment she was a princess, and the next, she was something unrecognizable, wearing a body that wasn't hers as a permanent reminder of her humiliation. And here's where it gets worse. She couldn't go home. The Twilight Realm belonged to Zant now, but she couldn't live in the light world either, because the light itself was hostile to her shadowborn existence. So Midna existed in a kind of dimensional homelessness, belonging nowhere, welcome in neither world. No throne, no kingdom, no allies, no power. Her only option for survival was bonding with a stranger, Wolfling, a cursed hero she'd never met, who she had to manipulate and ride on the back of just to stay alive. She went from ruling a kingdom to being completely dependent on someone else's body for transportation and protection. She's sarcastic and dismissive because that's literally all she has left. Attitude is the one thing Zant couldn't strip from her. The betrayal is what makes it cut deepest. This wasn't some ancient curse from a forgotten god. This was someone she knew, someone from her own court, who looked her in the eye and decided she deserved to be erased. Political violence from the inside is always more personal than any external threat. And even after everything is resolved, Midna shatters the mirror of Twilight permanently, severing the connection between worlds forever. She goes home, but Link loses her. Nobody gets the full happy ending, which is, not ideal. But if Midna's story made you feel something, the next one is going to absolutely destroy you. The Deku Butler's son. There are no gods in this story. No ancient curses, no demon kings, no timeline-shattering catastrophes, just a father and a tree. The Deku Butler's son is dead. The game never tells us how because it doesn't matter. What matters is what happened after. His soul was ripped from his body and sealed into the Deku mask that Link wears for the entire opening of the game. What's left of his physical form is a twisted, hollow tree stump, rooted into the ground of a cave that players sprint through in the first 10 minutes of Majora's Mask without a second thought. You walk right past. Everyone does. The Deku Butler knows. On the final day, if you return to that cave, you'll find him kneeling beside the remains of his child. Not because it helps, not because it brings his son back, but because it's all he has left. A father mourning a dead tree. Unable to move on, unable to do anything except exist next to what remained. Here's the thing, unlike every other tragedy on this list, there's no fixing this one. Link can save Termina. He can reset the moon, break the curse, free the giant, but he cannot give the Deku Butler his son back. The kid's soul is a mask in Link's pocket, and the game never offers a single option to change that. No side quest, no secret ending, nothing. And that's what stays with people. Not Demise's eternal curse, not the flood that drowned a kingdom, not Ganondorf's endless cycle of reincarnation. The darkest thing in the entire Zelda franchise is a father who lost his son and couldn't do a thing about it. Grief with no villain attached. No magic to blame, just the kind of pain that doesn't need a curse to destroy someone, because it already is one. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.